in. Just wait till you appear. Yes, hello, Oka. Judith.
Hello, everybody.
Christine has joined. Right, so hang on, and Judy now. Let's let Judy in. Good, Shriyanamala, welcome. Yes, welcome, Judy. I see a couple of new names I don't recall having seen before. That's Ian Walker and Givananda. Welcome to you. Palden. I think Simon's just connecting. Just let me stop recording. Just let Mariano in. Yes, welcome, Mariano. Goodness me, you're having quite a rather better attendance than normal today. Yes, Sanyu, welcome, Sanyu.
Hello.
Goodness me, they can't stop them coming. There's another just joining. Anyway, here we go. Simon, welcome. Before we start the main lesson, there were a couple of bits of etymology that I was asked about last time. Simon, in particular, I forgot last week to deal with your query of the week before about vergers.
I've had an update.
Tell us, see if your update coincides with my update. There are in fact two separate origins, but what have you found?
One thing I did hear, or from the people concerned, is that I don't know what linguists would call it, but it's when you kind of a back reading, so that they've made a verb out of the noun, and the verge may very well be the staff or stick that they carry around with them.
It is indeed, yeah.
So that it is a kind of a back reading from that you're verging them, that you're using the stick to shepherd them around, as opposed to verging meaning to lead or to take somebody. Although I think opinion is split on it at the cathedral.
Okay, well, my own research is very interesting. My own research is that there are in fact two entirely separate roots that by coincidence look the same. We have the Latin, the root verge in Sanskrit and verge in Latin, meaning to turn. And we get vergere, which on its own isn't much used, but we get then convergere, divergere, which in English we have as converge and diverge, meaning move towards or away from each other. And in English now, we get to verge, it's verging on, meaning it almost verging on the ridiculous, verging on the absurd. That means bending or inclining towards that. From an entirely separate root, there's the Latin virga, which means a rod or a staff, which is then a symbol of authority, like the fasces, the fasces, like the rod being the symbol of authority. So the verger, if you're on the verge of something, you're on the edge of something. But if you're the verger, I used to think it was somebody who wandered around the edge. In fact, it's the carrier of the staff of authority. And so verge and verger is entirely coincidental. that they have that they've come to. You know, they're sounding almost the same, and there's kind of a bit of an overlap which can confuse the mind that does not go into the etymology of it. Now, I'm not sure in French, you have the virgule, which is the word for a comma, like a little rod. Is it virgula in Italian?
Virgola, yeah.
With an O, virgola.
Virgola, and also I think apart from Visc, there is also Verga in Veneto, like a whip or yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
So we have these two separate roots that have become confused in the popular mind. So a verger and to verge on something is from actually two entirely separate roots. I'd be interested to hear what further wisdom emanates from your esteemed lady wife's cathedral, Simon. So that is in fact, we get in Sanskrit, vrij, meaning, or vraj. We get actually two separate roots in Sanskrit, which can be, there's vrij with the subdotted vrij and vraj. Vrij means to turn or to incline towards something, same as the Latin root we've just discussed. There is also the vraj, which means to proceed. Which actually now gives us quite an important word in Buddhism anyway, which I'm just going to share a screen with you. Share screen, hopefully it'll work this time. Here we are. Okay, now I'll just share with you. Go that way. Don't share. Here we are, right. Is the screen shared now with my iPad? Okay. So we've got the root, the root vraj, meaning to proceed. And to pravraj is to go forth. Pravraj, like to proceed. Pravrajita is one who has gone forth, that is, into the homeless life. And in Pali, it is, as you'd expect, pabajita, one who has gone forth. And the going forth, the act of going forth, is in Sanskrit pravrajya. Pravrajya. It's that ya ending as and so on, knowledge. And that's the Pali pabajja, well-known word in Pali. Pabajja, the going forth. So we could even talk about, we've got verging, converging, diverging. Now we can have proverging. Though remember, they are different roots, but they could have been the same root at an earlier stage of the language. You often find there are words that are they're different roots. They're treated by Sanskrit grammarians and by Panini as different roots, but primitively, you sometimes find that they are the same root, and one is just a variety of the other, and they've just the different meanings of them have been specialized. So there we are. So that deals with the subject to further news from Portsmouth. Then we can we'll see what emerges from this. And the other one was Mariano's interesting observation or query whether you know, a river and whether room and rea, the flowing, which is the through in the Vedic root, is anything to Rio, river, rivière, la rive. Actually, it seems not, but something actually, just a bit of amusement does arise from it. Funny what your sense of humor is. I can get amused by all sorts of funny etymologies. It's actually the Rio is from the Latin word ripa, meaning the bank of a river. So the river is that which flows between banks. And so you talk about, for example, if a river flows through different countries and under international law, you have the rights of riparian states. In other words, countries that have that own part of the river bank as a riparian state. And there was a Latin verb, ad ripare, which means to arrive at the bank or to arrive at the far shore. And that in French became arriver, which then was generalized, simply mean in our modern English word, to arrive. So our modern English word arrive, actually, if you trace it back, means to reach the shore, to get to your destination.
Riva in Italia means the bank of a river, yeah.
La Riva, is it? Ah, okay. Well, there we are. So it's changed from one label to another. It's changed from a P to a V then in both Italian and French. Ripa, Riva, La Rive in French. Right. Exciting and entertaining though this is, let's get back to a bit of Pali. Incidentally, I mentioned from virga, virgola, then meaning a comma, virgola, a little rod in Italian, and la virgule is the French for comma. Why is it called a little rod? Just as an interesting aside, we have the word danda, which is the same in Sanskrit and Pali. That also means a rod or a stick. And it's the same word as used when at the end of a sentence or at the end of a line in Devanagari, you don't put a full stop, you just put an upright line. Let me just write something, say just a simple phrase. That, sat. You have that at the end of a line, you don't put a full stop, you put this line here. And at the end of a full sentence or at the end of a second line of we put a double danda. So that's the danda, which is a rod, which seems to have the same meaning, the same reasoning behind it as the use of virgule danda, the little rod, something that marks a break. So that deals with the etymology. Yes, welcome to Leif. So we are today starting the verse 7 of the Mangala Gatha. Which I shall read and then we'll analyze it. Let me call up got it here, Mangala 8. So it said Mangala Gatha with Mangala Sutta, correct name. 8. So before we go on to verse 8, were there any particular comments or queries or doubts from any earlier verses? Either say now or later, you can raise them at any time. Right. So Arati, virati, papa, majjapana, cha sanyamo, appamado, cha dhammesu, etam mangalamuttamam. And once more, arati, virati, papa, majjapana, cha sanyamo, appamado, cha dhammesu, etam mangalamuttamam. So arati and virati have pretty much the same meaning. It's from the root ram. Oops. Oops, lost me icon. Here we are. The root ram. The primitive meaning of that root ram was meant to rest, relaxation, rest, and by extension, it came to mean to desist from something, to take a rest from it, or to stop doing it. And then by further extension, the word did expand quite a lot. It came to mean enjoyment. So viram means to prefix v plus ram basically means to stop or to cease doing something, like cease and desist in legal terms. You're familiar, or those of you who studied Devanagari script with me will be familiar with the virama. Virama, literally a pause, a pausing or a stopping. See where I'm on my screen here, I'm just putting an arrow. You see a little sign I've put under the t? That's called the virama in Sanskrit, meaning the pause or the stopping. For example, if I want to write tat in Devanagari script, where I've written as a ta plus ta, reading that in Sanskrit, in fact, would be tata. But if you want to block the final vowel, that's why it's called a pause or a stop, you have to write this little symbol under the final consonant. Now that becomes tat. So the virama or the pause. But in a moral sense, it also means desisting from something. So you have the virama, also by the way, this root ram, rather like, as you know, gum, makes its past participle not ganta but gata. It drops the nasal, and it makes its verbal noun gati, meaning a going. So ram becomes rata and rati. So in exactly that same way, the nasal drops out, both from the past participle in ta and the verbal noun in a ti, rata, rati. So we have virama, you also have virati, which now we have in the verse we're looking at, meaning desisting or pausing, ceasing to do it. So in this root here, virati is quite a common word, virati, virama. Arati is far less common, and as far as I can detect, it means much the same. This is one of those words that slightly puzzles me. Maybe it's just stuck in for emphasis. Arati, not a common word, but here it would mean ceasing and desisting, virtually the same meaning. There are some words, as I've said before, make me very slightly uneasy. Why does it quite mean that? What's the force of the prefix "a" there? I'm slightly puzzled by this word, but virati is fine. But in fact, oddly enough, the arama can mean rest. I'll be right with you, Simon. And in modern, those of you who know modern Hindi and Urdu, and Persian indeed, aram means resting. In Hindi, you use something aram se, at ease, relaxed. Usha, if you're there, can you help us? Is aram used in Punjabi in that same meaning as Hindi, relaxation, ease, and rest? If you're with us, Usha. Usha,
Yes,
yes,
I
welcome.
am. Sorry, I usually switch it off. Yes, yes. Aram means rest, relax. And in fact, when you were saying virati, veramani in the silas, when we take sila, I thought, oh, that's quite nice because it's saying give it a rest. I like the idea that
Give it a rest, yes.
to a
Step
thought
back
of
from it.
wanting to hurt or things like that. So,
Good. So I'm pleased to hear that. So in Punjabi, then use the same aram
aram, yes,
as in Hindi and Urdu.
yes.
Okay, that's excellent. Now the bit you rightly mentioned about Veramani, I'm just coming to that in a second. But but Usha is absolutely right to mention that, because we have the virati. Also, Viramani is essentially the same meaning. It's just so Viramana, which comes Viramani, but it's a linguistic anomaly. But all the correct consonants are there in the right place. Virati, Virama, Viramana, and Viramani. It has exactly that same meaning. So Panati Pata Viramani Sikhapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the training rule to refrain from taking life, and of course all of the other precepts. Simon, you had an observation.
Yeah, just two questions about the arati. One of them is it seems to come from the same root as the short a, arati, which is kind of discontent, boredom, aversion, and so on. And I'm wondering why we get the long R, why it differentiates in that way. Because it's not like the same privative. You can see why it would be both. You don't like it, you're not enjoying it.
Yeah.
And just the other little observation, I think you said in your notes or in the video that the long E at the end of arati and virati are probably there for reasons of meter. Could that possibly be about individual acts of giving up? So kind of desistings and rather than a general one-off thing, because we talk about vilomani, we talked about earlier, didn't we, like rubbing someone up the wrong way, but that's in the plural in the sutta.
Yeah. So what was the last word you said for rubbing somebody up the wrong way?
Vilomani.
Oh, yes, that's right. But the vilomani, yeah, with the neuter plural, of course. That's an interesting point. Arati, verati, papa. Linguistically, I think you could be right. It looks slightly odd to me to use plurals there. But linguistically, you could be right, because the singular doesn't apply in Sanskrit, but it does in Pali. That a singular noun ending in an E can make a plural in a long E. Same with U, bhikkhu, and can be bhikkhu or bhikkhavo, of course. So linguistically, you're right. It could be so. The other point you made about arati, so I've just given you this. So I'll come back to iPad. Oh. Ooh. Here we are. I just mentioned from Ram, we have Rati, and from Gam, Gati, and so on, which is just a verbal noun. And you're right, it does mean taking enjoyment. And the Arati is the opposite, a kind of aversion. something that causes you, the distinct opposite of enjoyment. That would hold good if it were a short arati, but that just means aversion. This is with the long and I don't think I can't think of a case where they have been you often get lengthenings at the end, lengthenings or shortenings at the end of a word, but very rarely would you find it in the middle of a word, at the beginning, a confusion at the beginning of a word. So I haven't explained that word. Virati. Okay, Pali is a little bit free with virati, long or short. But for an at the beginning of a word, you very rarely find the confusion between the long and the short. I'm just going to call.
Not thinking that they could be confused or the same thing. I'm just wondering how you get the idea of desisting or restraining from the long R.
Okay, that has puzzled me. So let me. I hope this is now going to overcome. Okay, here we are. So arati, if you can see now, this is from the PTS dictionary here. So rati, enjoyment, arati, dislike, discontent, aversion. So far, so good. That is clear. So arati, so and ram, this is, so in arati, it is the negating the non-enjoyment, but here it's the verbal prefix arati from aram, leaving off abstinence. Let me just call up, hang on. I'm just going to call up okay, this is what Mary Williams has to say about it in Sanskrit. And that's what has very slightly puzzled me. So we have the root ram, meaning to take delight in something. The verbal prefix suggests like a dynamism, a movement towards. And that or adhi can be cognate with the Latin ad, meaning towards, to, which in modern Italian has just come and in modern French with the grave accent. So moving towards with delight, taking pleasure in something, to delight in, enjoy oneself, take pleasure, that all sits well in my mind. I fully understand it. But to leave off, to stop doing something, it's one of those slight doubts that I just have to live with. Maybe in a week's time. Mariano, please come in, rescue us. Rescue me.
I don't know whether, no, I got two other points around that one. I got, if you bear with me a second, I got the Sanskrit version of the Shila Precepts. And so
okay, right,
I read out the second one. Adatta dana virati shikshapadam samadadami. And the question is, what is the implication? Because you've got a different way of putting it in Pali. You don't use virati, you use viramani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what are the subtleties there? So that is the first one.
Okay, I'll deal with that first. Is there really a subtle distinction between them? I tend to think not. These are just alternative ways. As you know, Sanskrit and Pali have various ways of making a verbal noun. Sometimes the meanings are different, sometimes not. I think these are just two alternatives of making the verbal noun, virati and veramani. Whether there is any distinction of meaning, you can almost
You know,
deceive yourself into thinking that you spot a difference. To be honest, I don't think I can in this case.
because often it is translated as refraining from.
Yes.
And I was
There's
wondering
as a kind of suggestion, because you're desisting or ceasing, there is a suggestion that you were doing it before you were stealing and taking life. There's a suggestion that, okay, you were doing it, you must now stop doing it. Like
I was wondering whether there was an encouragement to be a bit more liberal with the interpretation in the Sanskrit version. You know, you can have a glass of wine, you know, just refrain a little bit, you know.
Well, that actually comes, the glass of wine, of course, comes in the second pada of that same line in the Mangala Sutta that we're looking at.
All right.
Can I?
Yeah, please, Usha, do come in.
Well, reflecting on the precepts, when you take a rest from something, you can then have delight or experience peace. So I thought, interesting looking at this word that you put on arati, because I was thinking of the Hindus, you know, they do arati in front of the gods. And it's almost like perhaps taking rest from normal life and involvement with the things, and then delighting in something that is higher. So it seems to me, who was the person just now saying, enjoying a glass of wine, enjoying something that's blissful. Arti seems to, as soon as I hear the word Arti, it means the prayers they do, you know, and puja that they do. But also it's connected with Viramani. So I'm thinking, when you stop doing what is not needed to be done, perhaps there's delight comes or something like that. But it's more like a reflection from the word and a meditation.
That really is an interesting point, because what will sometimes happen, and this could well be a case of that if you look at the strict dictionary definition, the academic definition, it means probably here to be interpreted as, for schoolmasters, that means that, this means ceasing. However, words have echoes beyond the strict meaning. You know, we've got these very subtle resonances and echoes of words. So that's I think it's a very nice point that Usha has made there. Although the actual strict meaning is desisting or ceasing, stopping, there is that echo of the easefulness, the aram that can come from stopping. I really like that point. Now, whether I think if you got a strict academic interpretation, you probably wouldn't get that said. However, the words do have echoes and resonances. So I think that we can see so equally when we take the precepts with the Veramani, we could have that same echo there. Yes, Mariano.
So the second one, I suppose my guess is eremo in Italian, probably eremos in Greek. It's from the same root, probably. It is the secluded place, the eremo, where you know.
The eremo, yes, and from we get the English word hermit.
Hermit.
Of course, is that same from that same root, a person who lives in a secluded place. I wonder if let me check that out. That's an interesting one. I'll check that out and come back to that one next week. So query then whether that is from Ram.
Thank you.
Oh, good. So back to the text. Where are we? So arati virati papa. Okay, a simple bit of grammar now. With papa is the ordinary word meaning any wrongdoing. So the one often translated as sin, that has a bit of a Christian connotation to it. Any kind of wrongdoing or evil. I think you use the word in Sinhala as well, do you, Dilli and Srinivara? Papam, Papa? You're muted, Srinivara.
Okay.
Yes, we use Papa.
Papa is a Papa, meaning. No, what would the range of meaning of Papa be in modern Sinhala? Does it mean any just wrongdoing?
No, we are using modern Sinhala also. Always we are talking about Papa, Papa. This is when you are doing sin, this you are doing Papa.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch well. Could you say it slowly?
No, we use Papa. It's like a Papa, like a sin when you are doing some wrong word. Yeah.
Okay. Does that have a specifically moral meaning in Sinhala?
Dilli, can you tell?
Yeah. Yeah. We say Papakarya, that's a sinner.
Yes, it will be Papakarim in
Papakarya is
Sanskrit.
sinner.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So a sinner, an evildoer. Okay, thank you for that, Srinimala.
Yeah.
So so the papa here is the ablative form.
Yes.
You refrain from something. And that's as we see it in the precepts.
Yeah.
The same ablative. So in the nominative form, the taking of what is not given would be the adinadanam.
Yeah.
The ablative adinadana veramani. So it is refraining from what is not refraining from taking what is not giving. So arati varati papa. And the same applies in sanyamo, which means more restraint. So majjapana cha sanyamo, that pana is from our root pa, meaning to drink.
Pana.
And let me just call up the, oops. Where's my iPad? Here we are. So the root, oops. What's happened here? Root pa, to drink. It's slightly irregular because you don't say party or something, it becomes pibati. It's a slightly irregular verb, duplication. So pibati, which of course comes into bibere, to drink, and a beverage. And a boozer is a bibulous person, is a boozer. So that's the same root. And we can have, for example, the future passive participle, something requiring to be done from the root kri. We have karaniya, something that requires to be done. Karaniyamattakusalena. And from pa, we have similarly with that ending with the suffix nia, paniya, means either that which should be drunk, or actually, yes, welcome, Abu Mateen, welcome. So the paniya actually means then drinkable. So in modern Hindi and Urdu and the other languages of northern India, you get the word ni, meaning water. But go back to it means any kind of water. I think I'm right in saying in modern Punjabi, Urdu and Hindi, any kind of water is pani. Go back to Sanskrit and Pali, and it is specifically drinkable water, or as we say, potable water, from that same root. That same root potable comes from the same root pa, to drink. That's paniya. And just as, for example, from the root da, we get the verbal noun dana, the actor giving dana. So equally from pa, we get the verbal noun pana. And that's what we see now in this verse here. Majapana cha sanyamo. Sanyamo, restraining oneself, majapana, from drinking majja. It's not, as far as I know, it's not precisely known by modern scholarship what majja exactly was. It's in fact, oops. In Sanskrit, madhya, and in Pali, majja. It is some kind of intoxicating drink. Sura merya majja pamadatthana veramani sikhapadang samadhyami. That's the majja there. It could be cognate, could be with the English word mead, which is a honey wine. But again, the etymology is a little blurred there, because, for example, we have madhu in Sanskrit, and Pali means honey. So whether our English word mead is cognate with the majja of Sanskrit and Pali, or comes from madhu ultimately, is, I think, I don't have the answer in my head. I'll see what more I can find out. I'll do that for next time. So majja, it's some kind of intoxicating drink. So majjapanam would mean the drinking of majja, madhya in Sanskrit, and sanyama is restraint, holding back in. This is from this root yam. The original meaning of the root yam was to exert force against something by lifting or pushing. That was the original meaning. Not a striking, violent force, but just like a more gentle, non-striking force, as if you were pushing a heavy object or lifting a heavy object, that kind of application of force or strength. And we have it, for example, in the Eightfold Path, is samavayama, which is vyayama in Sanskrit. The yama, the application of ayama, pulling towards yourself, vyama, pulling away. The vyayama is like the dynamic tension, like a tug of war, a pushing and a pulling. Here we have samyama. Let me make so samyama in Sanskrit, samyama, and in Pali, same word but just written a bit differently, sanyama. So sanyama, with this prefix san, back into oneself with, containing. So the sanyama is like holding something in, holding back a desire or an impulse that wants to get out. For example, a burst of anger, for example, if you restrain that, it would be the sanyama. Here, the majjapana cha sanyamo would be made to have this urge to take an intoxicating drink. Is the sanyama. It's the application of force to hold it back in. So majjapana cha sanyamo, restraint, exercising restraint. In fact, from restringere means to to hold something back in, to restrain, come from the same root. It's kind of an act using a force to hold a counter force back in. That's what lies behind it, sanyama. So arati virati papa majapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dhammesu etam mangalamuttamam. You will see that in the notes I've done here, I've done quite a detailed note on pamada, appamada. And you may have heard me saying before, this appamada, if I had to vote for the most important single word that the Buddha ever said, my vote would go for appamada. And the reason for that is this: it's in the very last words that he spoke before his death. And in fact, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Digha Nikaya Sutta 16, the final death of the Buddha, his last words are recorded as being Vayadhamma Sankhara Madeta Sampadeta. Simon. Okay, we've got Simon and Mariana.
On Appamada, Ajanta Nisro has a nice little essay. Is it practice in a word, which I thought was quite nice. So he agrees with you. He's stolen your idea.
Okay, I'm relieved to hear that. So, is there a link you could send me, and then I can share it with the group in the next group email?
Will do. I'll get it for you.
That would be very helpful. Okay, I'm relieved to hear that a scholar of the stature of Tanisaro agrees. Okay, thank you. And Mariano.
Yeah, I was wondering whether mad could actually be the root also in madhya, meaning anything affecting the mind.
I feel inclined to say yes. I think that is perfectly possible. I'm just going to call up.
So that would affect also my cider and cranberry juice.
It would have a grave effect on your manufacture of these substances. So I've just called up Monia Williams here. So madhya as an adjective, intoxicating, exhilarating, gladdening, or lovely. So the same root of the original meaning of that root in Sanskrit seems to me to mean a gladness, and then a kind of exuberant, wild gladness, and then charging forth the pramada. You're so full of intoxicated gladness about something, you rush towards it. That's the pramada in Sanskrit, pramada in Pali. And then the madhya, it's the same word now, the noun form, the neuter noun, any intoxicating drink. Now, if we just go back to the root mad on its own, to rejoice or be glad, and to boil or bubble, to gladden, exhilarate, enjoy heavenly bliss.
To be moist.
And moist as well. There's probably a kind of a sub-meaning. It just says perhaps originally, and then he's got the Greek madao and the Latin madere. It could be that. Whether there's any new learning or knowledge that's come since Monia Williams on this point, I'm not sure. I'll see if I can find. But you're right, Mariano. It seems very likely that madhya is likely from that same root of gladness. So from that root gladness, we get pamada. Now, the Buddhist teaching does not, of course, prohibit gladness, but what it does discourage is just getting carried away so that you lose your mindfulness and your self control, where the mind just gets out of control and carries you along with its desires. So the Buddha never said you can't enjoy yourself. It's just remain mindful, remain watchful of what is happening. So the pramada suggests that movement forth, suggests a loss of control in this gladness. So you can see how that meaning has morphed into this intoxication, lack of mindfulness. And you'll often find in the scriptures that pamada often, and I'd be glad for any input from anybody here, that pamada is often used as the kind of opposite of sati. If you are satima, if you are mindful, the opposite of that is you are, in Pali, pamatta, which is pramata in Sanskrit. So they're often treated as opposites. Let's just see what Moni Williams has to say about pramad. So yes, now this is interesting, the way Moni Williams gives it for Sanskrit. So pramad, so the prefix meaning forth or out. To enjoy oneself, be joyous, to sport or play. And then by extension, look at that, to be careless or negligent. So over enjoying yourself and forgetting your duties, you can see how one meaning morphs into the other. And then to neglect your duty, to be thrown into confusion. So all of these meanings are all there in the Pali usage as well. And remember that for the here we are. The past participle is the root ending in mad. What you get is mad plus ta becomes matta.
Which is mad in Italian. Matto, matta.
Matto. Do you know it could be that same word?
It could be.
You say matto in Italian, do you?
Oh, yeah.
In fact, our modern English word mad, I'm going to have to just trace this back a bit further if I can, but it seems to me that it comes from that same root, the original root of meaning joyful, and then losing control, and then by a further extension of meaning, when you are our modern meaning of mad, where the actual balance of the mind is disturbed.
Interesting.
So all of these meanings, joyfulness, gladness, neglect, madness, matto, they all likely from that same root. Simon, please come in.
There's also in the Digha Nikaya somebody talking about the conch shell blower and about how the noise is madaniya or intoxicating. So
Madaniya, exactly, yes, yeah. So which sutta is that in?
it's in the Digha Nikaya. I can't remember which one, but it's
Okay,
about
right.
conch shell blower who turns up, and it's the funny story about how they all bang the conch and tap it and stand it on its
They do, yes, the conch. The conch. That's the shankar in Sanskrit. I've often told you how the sh in Sanskrit often turns up as a k in Greek and Latin. And our word conch and the Sanskrit shankar are etymologically that same word. And you get in the Bhagavad Gita, shankam dadmau, he blew his conch. Wonderful sonorous, the shankam dadmau. So what were you saying there, Simon, about the conch?
The sound it made when the expert blower played it. There's a whole series of adjectives, and one of them is madaniya.
Ah, right, the kind of bewitching, intoxicating sound of the conch.
There's also, I think,
Right.
kamaniya, like lovely, to be loved.
Ramania, yes, Ramania, and yeah, Ramania, to be delighted in, Madania, exhilarating. Yeah. So let's get back to where we were. Oh, by the way, one bit of grammar that I'll give you, because it could be quite helpful. Mariano, you a few moments ago, recited the Adinnadana in
I can
Sanskrit.
recite it again.
Please do, and watch out for the past participle. It's dinna in Pali. Listen to Mariano saying it in Sanskrit.
Atattadana virati shikshapadam samadadami.
Okay, here we are. Thank you, Mariano. So this root da, which we all know to give, in Sanskrit, you would expect to see data.
Are you displaying the...
Are you writing?
Sorry. Here we are. You would expect to see data, as in gnata, and so on. And in Latin, dare, datus, data in the neuter plural, from which our English word data, things given. But in fact, what happens, instead it has a double T, datta. So slightly irregular there. And we have the Buddha's wicked cousin, was it? Devadatta? Which is just a name. Devadatta, I mean, gift of the gods. In Greek, Theodore. In Arabic, Ata'ullah. Ata'ullah is the gift of God. Devadatta is the same idea. Now, it also has an alternative, another even more irregular past participle, which is dinna, meaning given. So you can have datta and dinna. I don't think dinna is used in Sanskrit, but it is in Pali, and that's why when Mariana was quoting it, says adatta adana, you see, adatta adana. So something is datta, so given, negated adatta, not given, the ungiven, something that has not been given. And equally in Pali, the adinna is the ungiven, that which has not been given.
I wonder whether Donato is in the same line of business.
Yes, certainly. What happens with the English word donare? Sorry, the Latin donare, from which we have the English word donation. What has happened there is that we get the root da, which we have in identical form in Sanskrit, Latin, and the Slavonic languages as well. The root is da. And in modern Hindi and Urdu, dena is to give, from that same root. So da makes as we know, it makes the verbal noun dana, regularly formed verbal noun, dana meaning giving, and by extension the moral quality of generosity. What's happened in Latin is that you get dare to give, and by an extended root, donare. But it's both from that same root. I'm just going to examine a little bit more of the linguistics of that in Latin. what it's worth. I'll make a separate note to
Can
do it now. But the answer is yes. It is from the same root.
Can I, while you were talking and you were saying Dena in Indian languages, is there any chance that dinaro, danaro comes from the same root, something that you give?
I wonder whether it is the denarius.
No, no, it doesn't. Denarius is from 10.
10.
And it's from 10, is it? Ah, yeah.
It is in denarius was a coin representing 10 smaller coins.
Okay, well, okay, that makes sense.
We now get in the dinar and so on. It's nothing to do with giving.
Okay. I suspect it because money is something that equally most people regard their money as something they like to keep rather than to give. Yeah, you might also in many countries in the Arab world, the unit of currency is the dinar. So the dinar is taken from the Latin denarius. Also, the Greek word drachma, until they went on to the euro, because it was the drachmes, the drachma, plural drachmes in modern Greek, but drachma in classical Greek. And this with again, a number of Arabic-speaking countries got the dirham. So the United Arab Emirates dirham, for example, is from the Greek. So you get the dinar and the dirham. The dinar from Latin, dirham from Greek. I just going to double check that I haven't misled you about the past participle. I've said that the dinna is a Pali form, but not a Sanskrit one. I'm just very quickly checking. No, okay, I'm just looking at Whitner's roots, and it does not attest dinna with a double N for the given. Let me just check in. Oops, sorry, I've lost me. Here we are. So I lost a page. No, so it does not exist in Sanskrit as a past participle of the given.
If you excuse me, I'll take my leave.
Okay.
It was fascinating. Thank you.
Okay, sorry to see you leave, Mariano. See you next time. Bye then. So, appamado, as the opposite of pamada, is often translated as diligence, heedfulness, mindfulness, but all of these English translations, they all just get part of the rich meaning of that word, like so many words in Pali, which is why we're here, of course. You can only fully understand it by entering into the full meaning and history and feel of the word. So appamado, non-pramada, not getting carried away, non-negligence, heedlessness. So appamado dhammesu, from dhamma. Again, this is one of these words that can mean quite a few different things. Here it just means as in anything, or it could mean mental phenomena. Here it seems to be used in its broadest meaning. Things, anything, phenomena, or anything that happens in life. It's a bit
James,
like
Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as good qualities. He seems to be reading it as Dhamma in the singular with a capital D as we'd do it, but that's not suggested, is it, in the plural?
I'm sorry, Peldon, I didn't catch Will, so say again.
Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as good qualities, so he seems to be translating it as Dhamma, capital D in the singular, which it's not, is it?
Good. No, this is the Dhammesu in the plural.
Yeah, and it's just Dhamma as in stuff, isn't it, rather than the Dhamma.
Stuff, yeah. Again, the thing about these translations, even by somebody, you know, as expert as Bhikkhu Bodhi, I mean, happy to repeat, you know, he's my great hero when it comes to translation from Pali, but he is subject to the constraints that any translator who's trying to do a one word equals one word translation, however good the translator, if he's stuck within those parameters, he can't kind of pause every time he gets through an interesting word. You know, otherwise there would be, you know, his thick volumes would become several times thicker. So it's a word that we can have a very wide interpretation to. Rather like in modern Hindi and Urdu, the word baat, which is, it can mean speech, can mean more generally a thing. It's one of these very broad words. In fact, it derives from the Sanskrit vastu, and Pali vattu, an element or a base. But in modern Hindi and Urdu, baat can mean just things generally. And Dhamma is a little bit like that. In the Abhidhamma, for example, it has its own specialist meaning. So for the moment, I'm going to stand by my translation here that is in everything, as Simon so eloquently put it, stuff, and which I think is probably right here. So I thought we were going to zip through this in 10 or 15 minutes, but so pleased we haven't. There is a lot in here. So we can do a bit of recitation for those who would like to do it. So take any queries or comments now, and then we can do some recitals of it. Okay, Abdul Mateen, please come in.
My question is out of this one. Why we count this verse number 8? Why while the complete scripture uses it as verse number 7?
Okay, right, yeah, right. What happened is, why do I say to verse number 8? It's because it's according to which edition it is. These verses, the beginning, people might say, what is the first verse of the Mangala Sutta? They say, the first verse is Bahudeva Manusa Cha Mangalani Chintayum. Yes. However, in the full text, it starts off with this prose part, Evam Me Suttam Ekam Samayam, in prose. Some editions mark these lines as just verse 1 or section 1, and then the Bahudeva as verse 2. Other editions don't give a number to this Evam Me Suttam, so they put that at the beginning and then treat this Bahudeva as being verse 1. So there's no significance in it. It's just according to the editor of that edition, how has he done the numbering? It's as simple as that. There's no real significance in it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, Abdul Mateen, would you like to do a recitation of the verse for us? Hang on, let me pull it down. 6, 7, 8. So it will be verse 7 or verse 8, depending depending on the editor of the edition. So over to you, Abdul Mateen.
Yeah. Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dammesu etang mangalam uttamang.
You see, can you remind us, Abdul Mateen, what is your native language?
Pashto.
Pashto. Okay, right. So here we have Pashto, which is another, like Punjabi and Hindi, another, as it were, daughter of Sanskrit, daughter of the Prakrit. So from Abdul Mateen, we have this like native, authentic pronunciation. So would you like to, I did like the way you said that, Abdul Mateen. Would you like to recite it again for us?
Complete verse?
Yes, please.
Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dammesu etang mangalang uttamang.
Thank you. See, that came through beautifully. Thank you, Abdul Mateen. So what we'll now do, if I may, is have that same verse from a native Punjabi speaker. So Usha, would you like to come in with a recitation of the verse? And if necessary, just do it in your native Punjabi accent, which of course is very close. It's very close to the original.
Yes. Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dammesu etang mangala uttamam.
You see, that was really lovely. And you see how close it was to Abdul Mateen's way? And we shall now go a long, long distance to the south, a very long distance to the south. And Srinimala, can you give it to us now with your Sinhala pronunciation? We'll follow with Dilli also with the Sinhala pronunciation.
Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dammesu etam mangalamuttamang.
Thank you very much, Srinimala. Can you come in, Dilli, also with your Sri Lankan way or Sinhala way of reciting?
Okay, yeah. Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dhammesu etang mangalamuttamang.
Goodness me, this is really lovely hearing these different, you can see how slight regional variations, but they all retain the essence of the original. Now, we'll go now a little bit further east. Now, can we hear a Burmese version of it from your good self, Senyu?
Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dammesu etang mangalam uttamam.
Okay, right. I did notice that when we've got here several doubled consonants, the majja, sanyamo, appamado, dammesu, uttamang. Now, those who were reciting it from their native Pashto, or like Abdul Mateen, or the Sri Lankan form, or Punjabi, they all they held those double consonants very exactly. Now, when you're chanting in Burmese, do you have doubled consonants in Burmese, like sanyama, uttama, appamado?
We don't have it. We consider as the foreign words.
Okay, right. I follow then. So it then is not quite natural for you to pronounce a double.
Not at all.
It's the same for us English speakers. As you know, we don't have double consonants, save in rare circumstances. So we, as native English speakers, have to make a little bit of an effort to double it. Are you able to recite it again, Sanyu? But with but with being careful where it's written as a double,
Yes.
majja sanyo, to be taking care to recite it as a double.
Arati uriti papa majja panacha sanyamo
Yeah.
appamado cha dammesu etam mangalam muttama.
Okay, very good. So, although it's not native to us English speakers, although it's not native to you good Burmese speakers, nevertheless, it's actually fairly easy to do if you put your mind to it. And of course, Mariano's left us, but in Italian is full of doubled consonants, so it's native to the Italians to be able to do it. Okay, so we've just gone one. So we'll wind up there and resume next time round with the recitations of this verse for those who haven't had a chance to do it yet. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you in a week's time, hopefully. Okay. Thank you all then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye then. Bye to you all.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
James.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Luca.
sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.